on here. My name is Alex Herby, and I am the Education Integrations Manager for Generation Esports and Gaming Concepts. And I am going to be moderating today as soon as our panelists get on here. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind starting, who you are, maybe your title, and then kind of how, just in summary, what you've got going on in esports at your district, and we'll kind of go around the table here.
Sure. So I'm Jordan Wissinger. I'm an instructional technology coach here in Hartford, Connecticut with Hartford Public Schools. In terms of our esports program right now, we have officially rolled out in 11 high schools and 18 of our middle schools, with a quickly approaching implementation plan for January for our 24 elementary schools. So big things happening here in Hartford.
Rob Kasang.
So I'm Rob Kasang. I'm the Director of Social Studies and Business for the Connecticut School District out on Long Island. We got our team up and going last year. In the high school esports league, we played Valorant, we played Rocket League, a couple other games in terms of the high school esports league. And then this year, we just recently rolled out our brand new esports course, which we offer for computer science and business credit. And we're kind of in the infancy there. We're getting the ball rolling, but we're off to a pretty good start.
Awesome. And then Rob Dixon.
Yeah, Rob Dixon, Chief Information Officer for Wichita Public Schools. We have largest school district in Kansas. I'm currently in San Diego right now at Design 39. I'm visiting that STEM school. But as far as esports goes, in our district, we have it in every high school, every middle school. We teach gaming concepts in every high school. We had this year alone over 1,500 high school students take gaming concepts. We last year won $62,000 worth of scholarships in esports. Went to the nationals with Southeast High. So, I'm just super proud of our kids and where they've experienced success and how our district has really just accepted and even used esports and the fun of esports to go into areas like computer science.
Awesome. So like I said, I appreciate everybody being on here. I think this is going to be an awesome talk about, how this looks from kind of the administrative level on where esports comes from and how can it get into your school. And I know that all of our attendees today and those that are going to watch this on YouTube are going to really appreciate the insights that you guys have about this. So thank you all for being here. If you guys have any questions for the panelists, go ahead and throw those in chat. We've got some moderators in the background that are going to be watching chat to make sure that your questions get asked to our panelists. So anything you've got, go ahead and just throw that in chat. That would be great. All right, so we are going to go around the table, kind of. I guess everybody's table looks a little different depending on who's watching. But we're going to start with Rob Dixon and kind of go, back and forth. And if you've got something else, one of the other panelists, if you're not directed a question towards, go ahead and chime in. If you've got something else you'd like to add, please feel free to add some color to it. So Rob, what motivated your district to consider incorporating esports as an educational program?
Yeah, so I came into the district in August of 2019 from Omaha Public Schools. One of my coworkers in Omaha Public Schools is the mother of Dr. Lupo. I don't know if you guys know who he is. In Fortnite, he's raised $2.5 million in 24 hours, for St. Jude's research doing esports. So some of those things just kind of held in the back of my mind of like, there's something here. And I would say coming in, the district was somewhat primed for some change. So we implemented a one-to-one strategy, obviously, as a response to COVID. And through that, through relief dollars and other things, put in a esports theater. So we have 100 esports stations inside of a large facility where we facilitate esports tournaments. It was the only sport that ran in the fall of 2020 for our students. And I think, our schools that had kind of adopted it as a club, we're really far in. And we pay our coaches. We pay them that they get the same supplemental that our sports coaches get. So I don't know. I think it was ripe for change. And so then making sure that we took the instructional component of that was super important. So in that process, as we had those conversations, it was, okay, how can we incorporate problem solving and strategy and thinking about how students approach problems? And gaming concepts was the first thing that we adopted, and adopted it as we adopted esports as a competition. And I think it really helped us thrive, both in seeing kids succeed in something they were intrinsically motivated for, as well as reaching kids that we hadn't reached before.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think that, you hear that a lot, is that, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to reach these kids that are unreachable by conventional methods. And esports is that great combiner, that great integrator, where it's adding all of these kids in to have some stake in the school. So that's awesome that you guys recognize that. Jordan, how did you gather support and approval from the school board members and other stakeholders for adding esports to Hartford?
Sure. So a lot of the primary time was my own research, and I was trying to gather as much information as I could about the benefits of esports. So I spent a lot of time researching on my own, and even interviewing with multiple stakeholders in terms of curriculum, with Generation Esports being one of them, obviously. And then Generation Esports and I, once I decided that Generation Esports was the way to go, they worked very closely with me to come up with a pitch for the director of STEM. So we worked very closely on the slide deck together. They were right there on the slides with me, putting it together. And then I did my pitch for the director of STEM, and I pointed out to her all of the benefits that the students would have. And in terms of it becoming not only a scholastic portion of it, but the after school component, it just eliminates so many barriers for our students that had to go home to pick up younger siblings, or had jobs that they had to work at different hours. So we really saw the academic benefit, as well as we saw eliminating those barriers that traditional sports were posing for our students. So after the STEM director was on board with me, then we would prepare various presentations for various stakeholders, including parents, community partners that we've been bringing in, and of course, principals, that they would want to implement this within their schools. And then they would identify a point person for us. So there was a lot of moving parts there. I would say the course of what I just described took about 6 to 10 months to truly get all of the stakeholders on board, get a true vision and a true implementation plan ready to go in Hartford Public Schools.
Awesome. Rob, this is going to be difficult, but Rob C., do you have a different approach to how this worked for your district, on how you gathered support and approval for your board?
Yeah, so we were probably a little bit behind based on what I'm hearing from the other panelists here. We are actually kind of one of the forefront, schools on the Long Island side of things, in terms of having an esports program, and really kind of running with this notion of esports being something that we can use to bridge these gaps that our students are facing. I know I heard Rob and Jordan kind of mention the idea of reaching these students that are sometimes unreachable, and the idea of using esports as a way to can give students something to connect with at school. A lot of the kids that we've noticed that we're really making headway with are students that aren't on the football team, or aren't in the play, or aren't going to be, the extroverted kids in the cafeteria, or what have you. So for us, that was kind of the angle that we took. We, initially my first meeting with Generation Esports, we had our IT director there. We had our assistant superintendent for curriculum there. We had our math and computer science director there. So we just kind of went all in from the beginning. And the idea was, we all had this shared mindset that this was something that was going to be good for our students, for our district, so that we can kind of present that united front to our Board of Education. And we were lucky with it that we had a group of people that all supported it from the jump. And then it was a pretty easy pitch once we kind of took that information that we wanted to run with, and then saw that Generation Esports had the exact same mindset when it came to gaming concepts and things like that, and it kind of fell into place pretty nicely for us. And we had community support and board support right away. So like I said, things fell into place pretty nicely for us, mainly because we had that all hands on deck approach from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that some of you guys have talked about this before, but Rob Dixon, if you want to talk about how esports aligns with the educational goals for Wichita, and then we can kind of talk as a whole on how, because I assume there's going to be a lot of commonalities here between them. But how does esports align educationally for you?
So what I would say is, from an elementary, middle school standpoint, it's like exploratory, right? It's exploratory in problem solving, whether it be Minecraft challenges, some of those, thinking about, we have kids in high poverty in our district where, well over 70% for introduced. I think we're close to 78%. But whenever I think about those students, it's trying to help them see their way out of their current situation, whether that be a home environment or whether that be, just seeing them, being able to see what possibly could happen educationally for them in problem solving. Whenever I think about high school students, it's tying them into that STEM area, and it's looking even more middle school to high, thinking about, do you want to be in a career field that is creating things, whether it be computer science or thinking about cybersecurity, all those future of work areas that we want to expose them to, that we need critical thinking and problem solving. Like, those are the skills that we need in the future. And what I love about esports and what it helps us to do educationally is it allows kids to fail over and over and over again and be okay with failure. And I think it's a lesson we can learn in education. I think as staff, we have a problem with failure in education, but it is the art of learning, right? And I think it's a great reminder for us of what, how we learn is by failing. And this is a great avenue for that.
Absolutely. Anyone else have an alternate education goal that esports is assisting towards?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in Hartford, we have 4 pillars of our model of excellence, right? And that's high quality teaching and learning is the first one. And that's hit on the gaming concepts, standards alignment right away, right? And then we have the welcoming culture and nurturing climate. That is, esports is all inclusive, right? So it's a welcoming culture and climate to those students that may not have felt that way in traditional sports or in other classes. For us, we use it as a STEM elective as well, where a lot of our students are trepidatious going into a traditional STEM class. But now that this is a STEM elective, they go in thinking, okay, I got this. I can do this. This is approachable for me. So that definitely hits on that pillar. And then engaging family and community partnerships. I've never seen as many students asked to go on field trips to colleges, to build those partnerships and see, well, what does that local university or college esports look like? What does the arena look like? I want to see it, miss. So we're getting those partnerships that they weren't asking for it before. Sure, we were taking them on those field trips, but now they're asking for it because they want to see what esports looks like on that collegiate level. And then the skillful staff and effective operations is our last pillar. And this has taught us a lot in terms of IT. I saw that in the chat before, how we work with IT, and I'm sure we're going to get to that. But this has made our operations more effective as well in terms of making our system what it needs to be in order to have esports be effective for our students' overall learning.
Yeah, exactly. Robert, I'm just going to distinguish you by your names on the tiles. I think that'll be easiest for everybody here. Robert, is that you got anything else you would like to add to that?
No, I mean, I think we really hit the nail on the head there. Echoing just a lot of the things that Rob and Jordan said. The whole notion of meeting kids where they are and giving these kids that, connectedness that they might not normally have. That to me was the thing that really motivated me. I was a little, to use Jordan's word, trepidatious when we were going into esports. Full disclosure, I didn't really know what esports was about a calendar year ago, and now I presented at a conference with Trevor from Generation Esports on Friday, and we just kind of jumped fully in, and that was the real hook for me, was that idea of meeting kids where they are and getting them comfortable in, whether that's school, whether that's in STEM, computer science, and that notion of learning through failure, right? That idea of games intrinsically do it, and we don't even realize that it's happening, but you try and you try and you try and you're failing over and over and over again, and it kind of breaks down those notions of, as Rob said, schools are afraid of failure, or education is afraid of failure, and esports kind of breaks that down. So there's so many positives that we can take away from it, that we can teach our kids. So really just echoing what both of them had said. I 100% agree.
Exactly. So what I like about this panel, this group of people we've got here, is that we've got all three of you are from all different size school districts. So this next question is going to be great because we're going to get a range of answers on this. But what steps did you take to secure the necessary funding and be able to sustain funding for esports in your district? And we'll start with Rob Dixon.
Yeah. So when I look at how we implemented, it was really, I would say, a perfect storm. Like, we were about to go into a 3-year plan of a 1-to-1. And COVID changed that to like a 6-month. So we went from 3 months or 3 years to 6 months. And we deployed laptops and parking lots and everything else. But the ability to use relief funds for that freed up for me capital outlay. So in Kansas, I used capital outlay dollars to purchase technology. And so I used COVID relief funds for devices and used capital outlay dollars to invest in our building. So I invested in every high school and every middle school, 20 esports desktops for every single one of those. And so then I oversee the virtual school too. So we have about 500 kids in Education Management Academy. And it's at a downtown setting where I have the esports arena, where we have those 100 desktops. So that was a great centralized place for folks to come in. And I would say even like West High that first year, they had more kids than we could support the 20 devices. So those kids intrinsically made their way every evening to the esports theater from 3:30 to 7 every night to practice. And those are seeing kids that want to come back to school to learn, like, that's crazy, right? It's not something that you would just see. So from that standpoint, that extended. So the following year, when we invested in CTE devices, we invested in esports devices because we knew that we could do CTE programming on top of that. What did that do? It allowed all those high schools to have another lab that they could practice in, as well as do CTE related curriculum. So I think it was a great show of an example, and then allowed some of the other programming to lead into more esports opportunities.
Great. Jordan, being able to fund it and secure funding for the future for esports at Hartford?
Sure. So funding has been interesting at our district level because we are a relatively big district. So on the district level itself, we wanted to focus on equitable access, right? So the district STEM budget funds the curricular access to the gaming concepts course, both in the middle and high school level. And then we secured a state-based grant for foundational level of equipment for all of those schools that were offering the course as a standalone course, or whether it was in a STEM Plus period, however they're planning on implementing it. If they have a scholastic plan, then the district made sure that we solidified a state grant to have that foundationally based equipment, because most of our schools were Chromebook-based schools, and those were having issues, obviously, running the gaming titles that the kids were interested in playing. So we wanted to make sure that we got them at least a class-based set of equipment that would function as the students needed it to. Now, other individual schools, they use SIG grants to completely outfit an esports arena. So that's going a little above and beyond, but the district money itself makes sure that everyone has an equitable, accessible experience. So SIG grants built out some more esports arenas. NASA fellowship money was able to help us get some Nintendo titles, as well as Generation Esports was able to get us some Nintendo titles with the contract signing with Nintendo. So there's lots of different avenues that we're using, and we're always on the hunt for grants and ways to keep it going. But in terms of that foundational access, that is from the STEM budget itself on the district level to ensure that all of our students have access to scholastic esports on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and Jordan, I've got a question here in the chat. Is that SIG grants, SIG, or is that something
Yes.
different?
School
SIG.
improvement grants.
School improvement grants. There we go.
Yes.
It's on the record there. Rob, any different funding options or avenues that you, or Robert, different funding avenues that you did at Connecticut?
Yeah, so we're a much smaller district. I'm just working with, I have 1 high school, 2 middle schools, 7 elementaries, and we're not even at the elementary level yet. So like I said, we're, comparatively in our infancy here. But for year 1, which was last year, and then year 2, which is this year, we were still able to use that COVID relief money. I think it was the ESSA funds that we used to fund the outfitting of the lab. We bought 16 of the gaming devices, monitors, things like that, and then obviously been supplementing it with switches. This year we used a little bit more of that money to purchase some Xboxes also that we're using as part of the course. We were trying to kind of avoid the overlap with using our team's gaming computers, because it's the same lab that we use for the course and for the team. We have kind of functioned our team like a varsity team. So I kind of explained it like you don't have the phys ed classes using the varsity football team's equipment. So we kind of we use a little bit more of that ESSA money to fund the Xboxes for the class. Just like Rob said that they did by him, we also pay our coaches. We have 2 coaches for our teams. That money also came from the COVID grants. So that got us through last year and this year. It's going to run out at the end of this year. So what we're planning to do is move forward by making it part of our budget. The curricular piece through Generation Esports will probably come out of the business and the math budget, and then TBD on how the rest of it is going to be funded. The good news is we got the big purchase was made already. We got the devices, we have the lab, everything is outfitted for us to kind of be set up for success moving forward. And now it's just a matter of, like I said, paying our coaches and continuing to kind of supplement the curriculum and work with Generation Esports to make sure that we're staying up to date and things of that nature. So like I said, we made the big investment early, and now it's going to be budgeting for it, which is going to require a little bit more board approval, community support, things like that, because you're getting into taxpayer dollars after that. So that's a minor challenge that we see coming up. I don't think it's going to be a major issue, but it is something that we know in the back of our mind we're going to be facing at budget time.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to point out that, the 3 experts we've got on here talking about, their districts and their esports programs. This is only one avenue of the way you can incorporate esports into your district or into your building, right? You can start with a much smaller footprint of getting some consoles or some switches, whatever you're able to accommodate according to your budget, of course. But that's only one side of it, right? Is buying everything is one side, supporting everything is the other side, right? So I'd like to hear from Rob and Jordan about technology infrastructure requirements and how you let kids access Steam or Discord or anything during the day and challenges and solutions that you might have with that. And we'll start with Rob.
Yeah, sure. So I get the opportunity to see over both the operational side of technology and the instructional side of technology. So in my district, I get to be the go-between. So it's not I don't have to grind against a tech department or an instructional tech department. They're both underneath me. So from that standpoint, if once that vision is casted, then they support it. So from a device standpoint, everything's in the cloud in our district. We're Microsoft. I've been on Microsoft's education board since 2015. So everything's in Intune. Our esports stations are managed by device policy. And so that allows me to, provision those devices and set a posture for those devices to where both from a network standpoint, we can allow those games to happen whenever the kids log in through Azure AD. So then whenever they go across to their regular devices, because even our one-to-one laptop initiative allows for 4 of the 6 games that we support to actually run. So those kids can practice at home if they want to. So it just allows, based upon their membership, their ability to work within that environment.
Awesome.
Rob,
Jordan?
when you're talking about those laptops, are those gaming laptops?
I'm trying to hit the unmute button. Sometimes they are. Depends on where you're at. I would say at the middle school level, they're not gaming laptops per se, but at the high school level, many of those laptops, we kind of designated HP Omen, so we use both Omen desktops and Omen laptops in a space. So, I would say some of those are and some of those aren't. If they're Omen laptops, they can run any of our games, obviously.
Jordan, tech infrastructure and getting through firewalls and chatting with IT, and some tips and tricks for that for Hartford.
Sure. So full disclosure, this is not my jam. I'm just the middle gal that goes in between. But we are super fortunate so we work with an entity called MHIS, which is Metro Hartford Innovation Services. So they cover IT for all of the schools, all of the police departments, all of the libraries, any public institution they cover. So when we sat down, myself and the STEM director with the chief information officer over there, she is on board. She is supportive of this endeavor and this initiative. So when a ticket goes in that says Scholastic Esports, from a teacher's perspective, whether that's an update is needed or something needs to be whitewashed or a port to be opened, it gets sent to a task force on our IT team. So they have a whole infrastructure set up over there on who's in the task force, who's assigned to what school, and we do use a ticket system. In terms of, we're looking into maybe having some open settings for different timeframes. I've looked into that with them, but they really have been super supportive. As I mentioned, we had mostly Chromebooks, and the IT department was actually very pivotal in acquiring the Windows-based devices for us to have those laptops readily available for students. So in terms of whitewashing and opening ports, that's not me, but I know the go-to, and we just put in a ticket system, and then they put it as top priority because they see the vision and they see the benefits that our students are gathering from Scholastic Esports. So it gets moved right to the top of the ticket system.
That's awesome. And that relationship, as somebody who's been in your role before, being the in between the teacher, well, I was also the teacher, but being the teacher and the middleman, and then I have IT on the other side of me, right? I understand that role, and being friends with the IT director really helps. Like being on their good side, and we always joke about making sure they get nice Christmas presents from you.
Yes, lots of flowers and lots of coffee.
Something, yeah, absolutely right. Robert, I'd like to ask you about the games specifically that you guys play. So, in Connecticut, what considerations were you looking at when you selected games or platforms for your esports program?
So we kind of started out with letting the kids tell us what they were interested in. So we looked at what Generation Esports had to offer, and then we started with kind of an interest survey, asking the students what games they're interested in playing, what devices they own, what devices they prefer to play on, and things of that nature. And we kind of let them guide us towards which games we were going to eventually kind of concentrate on. So we ended up kind of landing on, from the team perspective, we ended up landing on Valorant, Rocket League, and Minecraft as our big three for the first year. We had some cursory interest in Rainbow Six Siege, and then that's where we met with our upper administration, and we had a little bit of a discussion on kind of where we were going to draw the line in terms of first-person shooters and game ratings and things like that. So we sat down and we kind of said that the line was Valorant. It was a first person shooter, but it wasn't overly graphic. It was, a little bit more cartoon based and things of that nature. So that was kind of the line that we drew. We did kind of get help because of the timing. We're on the East Coast here, the queue time. So we run our practices from 3 to 5. So the the earliest queue time for Rainbow Six Siege last year was 5 o'clock. So it kind of automatically eliminated it for us, which made it a little bit easier because we didn't have to fight that fight, but had we had to fight that fight, I think we would have erred on the side of caution and kind of said, especially year one, let's make sure that we're kind of playing it a little bit safer in terms of celebrating our successes and getting the good word out there before we, come out and we're offering these games where somebody could walk in and say, why are you doing this in a school? And then, when you build up that credibility and you build up kind of that political capital, and then you can say, okay, look what we're doing for our kids. Look at the success we're having. Look at our attendance, or look at our whatever, whatever metric you want to point to, kind of showing your success. Then we may kind of take a step forward and go a little bit, further into the frontier, I guess, but I know Generation Esports is working on getting a 3 o'clock queue time for New York this upcoming year. So if that happens, we might have a new set of issues, but I'm still hiding behind the queue times, and we're going to go with that for this year. But so that just kind of give you an idea of where we were at as a district.
Yeah. And
Alex,
go ahead.
I want to I'm at a school, so I felt your pain at the beginning when everything's locked down when a visitor comes to school. So, and Robert, when you said Rainbow Six Siege is what you started with, everybody here went, they gasped. And so how in the world from the galley did you get Rainbow Six Siege right out of the gate?
No, we did. We got Valorant. We stopped at Valorant. We didn't push for Rainbow Six.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I had to know my limits year one, Maybe later on in the year we'll fight that fight, but I'm not going there
Okay,
yet.
we missed that here.
Yeah,
We heard
yeah.
Rainbow Six
Sorry.
Siege, and we all.
No. I'm sorry if that was unclear. We drew the line right before Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah.
I see.
Good
see.
job.
Thank you.
Good job. Rob, Jordan, you guys have similar experiences with selecting games for your district or what your kids can play. They kind of have a choice, and then you weigh that against community ideals and district expectations.
So yeah,
Jordan,
we
go ahead.
actually, as you know, you guys have been so gracious in building us a no FPE first person eliminator package, and we appreciate that. So the vision is that during the school day, right, we're not going to offer any of those titles. We're going to play make believe that they don't exist, right? We know students are going home and playing them on their own, but we're teaching them the skills that we want them to then transfer later on as they're playing those. But it was interesting because I was in a class the other day in a middle school, and one student pulled me to the side and said, "Miss, I know we have to play the boring stuff now so we can get to the good stuff later." So even they're seeing the big picture of right now, none of these titles are going to be offered. Right? Let's prove this initiative. Let's prove all the benefits of what it does for students. And then possibly we can explore the after school titles being a little more inclusive of the titles that they're looking for. But for right now, we really lean in on Rocket League for the most part, Minecraft, those titles.
Yeah, perfect. Rob?
We support 6 games, and we went through a whole vetting process. I would say one of the things that I still am constantly reinforcing in frequency, not necessarily to our board, because I feel like they've completely wrapped their hands around us in support, but sometimes to the community, because, we have kids that, we have a high mobility rate in our district. We have kids that come in. So it's more of like a conversation with parents. Whenever we have a middle school night, it's crazy to see 200 parents come and show up on a Friday night, right, to our esports arena. But while we're there, it's having that conversation with the parent, because many times they don't understand, right? Because their kid is going into a room and they might not see them for hours at a time. And so some of those conversations about what games that they play, it's helping them to build awareness of what their kids are playing, to help them, right? And digital literacy, digital citizenship, because sometimes a parent might not want their kids to play a certain game, right? If they want them to have a certain perspective. So I think it's even important to not only vet the games, right, in school, but even help our parents have an awareness of what games are out there, and even, in an online environment, how to handle themselves in an online environment where they might not know the other person on the other side.
Awesome. All right. So, we've kind of, we've hinted at it a lot, and we all know it, right? But if I could get just one thing that you could say is the biggest benefit you've seen from implementing esports in your building or in your district, what would that one thing be? And we're going to start with Robert.
Yeah, so for me, it's seeing the kids, and I know we've referenced them, but it's seeing the kids that don't have the hook, to want to be in school and are there because they're required to be there. These are the kids that aren't wearing their gear on pep rally week, and they're not, they're not sitting with a big group of friends at the lunch table. They're not participating in class. They're kind of your kids that get lost in the shuffle, for lack of a better way to put it. And I remember this year I was going around doing some recruiting earlier in the year, and I, was going to the different tables, and I would look for the tables that had 1 or 2 kids sitting at the cafeteria and just say, listen, you guys interested in esports? And a lot of them just stared blankly at me and gave me nothing. But a few of them, I saw their faces just kind of light up, like, we have that here. That's a possibility. Kind of like, I go home every day and sit in isolation and play video games. I can do that. And then I start talking to them and say, yeah, we have this whole lab. I'll bring it down there. Last year we ordered all this apparel and we're painting the room in school colors. And for them, it was kind of like this look on their face. I never thought I was going to be part of something where I'm representing my school, doing something that I'm passionate about or something that I'm good at. And, I think a lot of them just kind of felt like they were going to float through for 4 years of high school. And now seeing those kids and, the excitement on their faces when they come in, some of these kids will come into my office and be like, we had a game today, can't wait, or I had a kid in my office today telling me he wants to design jerseys, and he was like showing me a picture of the football jersey and then an esports jersey. We mash these up, it'll kind of look like really school spirited and everything. So it's just really fun seeing these kids that would never come out of their shell, just have this opportunity. And for me, that's been the most rewarding part. And it's something that I think is anyone that's kind of on the fence about, is esports for us, or are there enough benefits to it? I would just look to those kids. And even if you help 1 or 2 of those kids in your school, it's well worth the investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan?
Yeah, so definitely engagement, as Robert was just talking about. But I've also had a ton of reports from teachers of unlikely groups working together, right? Like kids partnering up with somebody that they never would have expected them to partner with before, which is fantastic. And the hugest win that I, as a woman in gaming now, right, sees is that our female students are speaking up for themselves a lot more in the course now and saying, well, I don't want to play that title. I'm more drawn to, especially the Nintendo titles for our girls, right? Or I don't want to be a player today. I'd rather analyze the gameplay today. So our female students finding that voice and being able to speak up in a STEM class is big, and it's huge for our teachers and for our students.
Excellent. Rob?
So I'm going to cheat. Last year, we had Wichita State University do a year-long assessment of our esports program, and the dean of academic leadership at WSU uh, presented to our leadership, and I want to read to you what they found in their findings. Esports increased team member sense of self-efficacy, confidence, and affiliation through belonging. Esports created academic differences in team member engagement before and after participation. Stronger relationships with peers and adults, better communication and leadership skills, better attendance, and grades were an outcome in every team that they interviewed, which was every single one of our high school teams. So I think for myself, it's like, it's that connection. Like, that connection means everything. And I think if you look post-pandemic, that's what we see, less connection. Like, the behavior issues, all the other problems that we see is from a lack of connection. And what esports does, it helps those kids make that connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was, when I was teaching gaming concepts and brought esports into our schools, the connection piece was the building initiative, was that we needed 100% participation in this building. And what are we going to do that? Well, it's esports because everyone is gaming outside of these walls. Why aren't we doing it inside the walls, right? Where somebody can make the connection, somebody can bring in an adult perspective and can make these things teachable moments. And it had such a tremendous change on the building's culture, and how kids interacted with each other in the halls. It's so awesome
Alex,
to see.
one of the biggest things that I love, that slideshow title is "It Takes a Spark to Ignite a Fire." And I think that's what happened in Wichita Public Schools and with these students.
Absolutely. That's so true.
And I'd like to jump in just some history there too. I was at the alternative school for 18 years, and we never, well, I was there for 20 years, but up until 18 years, we had never had a visit from a college. And the year we implemented esports, we had 2 college recruiters come and visit and recruit and give scholarships to 2 alternative school kids. And these are kids that never thought there was a pathway for them. They never, finances, or just they didn't have that hook. And so it opened up just this whole new avenue for kids that they never even knew that they could be part of. And so that coming from an alternative school world, which you guys have alternative schools, and everybody has alternative school at-risk kids in their schools. And so for me, that was the biggest thing, was just more opportunities for kids to find their passion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've talked a lot about, all the benefits and everything that you see from esports, but a lot of times people have that fear of starting something new, kids especially, but maybe more so adults, right? Getting a board or getting an administrator to go along with esports or to believe in the benefits. But, Robert, I'd like to know from you, from your perspective, some challenges or obstacles that you ran up against in your district when you tried to start this.
Yes, so I think for us, I mentioned earlier on how we were pretty lucky that we had pretty widespread support among our, administration. But one of the things that, even notwithstanding, was the idea that there's still this notation or this perception, I should say, of what gaming is. And for people that haven't taken the time to kind of update themselves or really look into what gaming is today, they just have this idea of the kids that sit in their basement, drinking their Red Bull, eating their Doritos until 3 o'clock in the morning, cursing at people on the other side of the world with no structure, right? And all of a sudden you start saying, like, okay, we're going to offer this within our schools, and we're going to make this giant financial investment, and we're going to give students credit for taking this class and playing video games during the day. And whether it's teachers or parents or any community members looking at you and saying, why would you possibly offer that to students? Aren't they doing enough gaming? Or how is gaming possibly going to do anything positive for these kids? So kind of just changing the narrative and explaining kind of everything that we've talked about over the last 45 minutes here. Just this idea of there are so many benefits to it. There is an attendance component to it. There is a hook to it. There are leadership skills and teamwork skills and social skills and so many different things that these kids that are there. They're just waiting to be tapped into, and they have them. You're kind of like bubbling at the surface, and they just need someone to kind of unlock them for them. So I think for us, it was just changing that narrative, changing that perception within our community, within our teaching staff, within our faculty, and even within some members of our administration. So that was, I would say overall changing the narrative and then kind of recentering people's focus on what gaming is today.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have another challenge or obstacle that they've faced or are currently facing that they'd like to share?
Yeah, I would say a challenge that we faced was teachers fearing the lack of structure, like Robert was just talking about, both our teachers that were instructing as well as the other teachers in the building. The other teachers in the building were worried that the games would bleed into their class, right? Well, how are we going to stop little Johnny from playing Rocket League in my class? And it took a lot of conversations of the whole point of the class is to utilize the gaming as a tool for structure. So they won't go into your class and do the gaming anymore, right? And we also eliminated that by having class sets of devices that have those games housed on them as well. But I think for my teachers that are instructing the course, it was a little awkward to allow them to play video games in class. So they had to have that release of responsibility to them and say, like, it's okay. They're still practicing the skills that I want them to through video game play.
Yeah.
And with our IT issues in terms of a lot of our teachers were worried that, well, what if I can't get in the games in the middle of class and it's purposeful playtime? So as the instructional coach, I just have kind of a bag of tricks ready for them to go that isn't a digital version of purposeful play. And I think once they saw what was available to them and that it was still hitting the same objective, they felt a lot better.
Absolutely. And that brings up a good point. And I want to ask Rob here because he represents the larger district here in our chat today. But, the teachers that are unfamiliar or are uncomfortable with this method of teaching or allowing this to be in the classroom, what kind of support systems or professional development can you offer or do you offer teachers in the esports space?
Yeah, so I'm happy to partner with Christy and her team. We actually do a summer cohort of teachers that we try to bring into the coaching area, and they get I think 3 credit hours. Christy, is that right? At Wichita State University. So I think
Yes.
some of that is going down that line, but then also we have a tech summit every year that we do. That this year will be an AI summit that we bring in, and we train those teachers on just purposeful play, right? Like, I think one of the things that we somehow have lost is there's a somewhat fun aspect to learning, and through strategy and problem solving, like, kids intrinsically want to solve problems if they see relevance. And somewhat I see in K-12 education is a lack of relevancy. Like, if kids aren't engaged, it's because there's not relevancy. And I think it's not the notion of just making it fun to be fun, but there's different aspects of learning that help kids to want to intrinsically learn. And I think it's just a great example of purposeful play, but kids learning when they don't realize they're learning. And that's a key point of it. Like, there's some lightning in a bottle in this whole process. And if I had to tell a teacher, like, what's happening in your classroom and why don't you see esports as an alternative to learning, I would ask them, like, are you introducing purposeful play? And if they're not, like, let me show you a classroom of engaged students. Let me show you a classroom. We've put some esports devices in some questionable areas in our district, and I can tell you, because the kids see value in those devices, they don't we don't have things leaving or going away because they realize how, if that happens, they won't have it anymore. And if that's what they see as fun in their educational environment, then you don't have to worry about it.
It's not like Chromebook keys that are
Right.
missing at bags of a time. So
Yeah.
Christy, I know you want to jump in and say something here on this.
Well, I happened to be in New York, and I was really tired one day, and a gentleman just wanted to challenge esports. And every now and then, I wouldn't call it lose my temper, but I get pretty direct. And he goes, "What's the value? They're already playing so many video games." And I said, when you walk into an esports classroom, the kids are not on their phone. The teacher is not having to stop them from going to the restroom. They're not asleep. They're fully engaged. And I said, the best part for me is joy. And somewhere along the way, we have lost joy in our classrooms. And it's because we're so focused on standards, and we're so focused on, we've got to get through the content, that we've stopped the joy of the joy of learning, the joy of teaching, the joy that's in the classroom. And I said, if all this does is give kids and teachers joy, that is enough. And I was that close. It was a room full of teachers, of getting I promise, a standing ovation, because yes, that's what it is. It's joy back in the classroom, not only for the kids, but for the teachers too. And we have an opportunity, I think, because nobody knows what esports, scholastic esports, is supposed to look like. We have an opportunity to change education here. And it was kind of like alternative school. You can't go to school to be an alternative school teacher. You can't go to college to be an alternative school teacher. And so a lot of people would come to us and say, what does this look like? Well, we kind of made it up on the fly, And so that's really what we have done, is we want to change the way education looks. And we're starting with esports because nobody knows what that's supposed to look like. So we have the opportunity to build that out into something super special that hopefully will, grow and grassroots into, this is what education looks like, not just esports. There's joy that's back in. And that's kind of my soapbox.
Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback off that just for a second. But, when kids find joy in curriculum, in skills, in whatever they're doing in the classroom, it will bleed into other parts of the building. Because if you're doing a really cool video project or some sort of STEM activity or something that they can relate to another core subject outside, because I was an elective teacher, they're going to find a way to ask those other teachers, hey, well, why can't we do a video? Why can't we do a TikTok? Why can't we? And it's going to challenge all those other teachers that might be a little bit more curmudgeon-y about, cutting edge ed tech stuff, to maybe embrace a few more things slowly, right? It's going to bleed. And then that changes your whole building culture, being able to, embrace change, because the kids are pushing for it and you have that voice and that choice. That's awesome. Well, I want to offer some time for questions here, but I do have one last prompt for the group, and that is, I'd like for you to just a closing thought, on esports, on where you think it's going, the benefits, closing thoughts. We're going to start with Jordan.
Sure. Where do I think it's going? Well, I think the sky's the limit, honestly. And that's not just, to throw that out there, but I think
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate you coming on, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jordan. I'm really sorry. You've got to go. They're closing the school. So
better get out before you get locked in.
Thank you, Rob, so much. All right, sorry to cut you off.
That's fine. When we're in this esports world, right? Even us as adults, everything is always changing. So we're always learning something new about esports. And I feel like that is the gravitational pull that our students are also going to grab onto and say, like, everything's different every single day when I go back to my scholastic esports class or club or team, whatever it looks like in your school. So I truly do believe that the sky's the limit for scholastic esports.
Yeah. Rob. Now I can call you Rob. Rob.
It's nice to get Rob back. It feels
Yeah.
good. For me, I think it's I kind of piggybacking off Jordan. Basically, if you can convince me that Scholastic Esports is something that's beneficial to everyone, I think you can probably convince everyone, because when it was actually first brought to me about a year and a half ago, and somebody said we should do esports in school, I'm like, well, why are you bringing this to me? I do social studies and business. And then I kind of like, not that I didn't want to deal with it, but it was one of those things where I'm kind of like, I mean, I guess if no one else is doing it, all right, I'll explore it. And I met with a few companies, and I was still kind of like had some tepid interest, and then something clicked when I met with you guys, and seeing the presentation and everything that we've referenced today. I mean, we don't need to keep reiterating the same things, but the idea that it does so many positive things for our students. And I'm someone who didn't, when we took those first meetings, I had never heard of Rocket League or Valorant. I kind of knew what Minecraft, like I had no idea what I was getting into. And I had to be convinced from the very beginning that this was something positive. So if someone like me with zero knowledge and no idea of what the benefits are can jump in and be fully on board, I think anybody can. And that's why I think what Jordan said about the sky being the limit is true, because this probably is the tip of the iceberg. And if we all do what we're supposed to do and keep promoting this and keep putting our kids in the right situations, where we should be able to find a ton of success. So I'm excited about it moving forward. And I really think we can turn this into something special.
Awesome. Absolutely. Christy, any closing thoughts for anyone? And if you got if any of the attendees here want to throw some questions in chat or chat with our panelists here, I'm going to throw those in while Christy's finishing up here.
I really think that the panelists totally covered it, and I think the thing that I got most is you just jump. I mean, it is completely new. There's no wrong way to do it. And the one thing that I didn't hear anybody say, and Jordan, I thought you were going to say it, is when those teachers are worried about what am I going to do in class and what's this going to look like, and I don't even play. I don't play video games. The kids play video games. Let the kids guide you, and they will take you where you're supposed to be. It's so almost intrinsic and natural and holistic, because they want you to succeed, because they want video games in the classroom. And so, I was an English teacher, and they'd fight me. I mean, and they almost loved it when I would make a mistake, or I do. They are pulling for you, and they want this to work. And both of you said it a couple of times that, they know if I do well and we are good, we're going to get to move from Valorant to the fun games, or whatever. And they know that this is something special and new, and they're part of it, and they're part of growing it.
Yeah. Awesome. Excellent closing thought there. So if anybody has any questions, please throw those in chat. I'd love to hear from you guys out in the audience. Questions that you have specific to your district, specific to esports. Now is the time to ask them. Well, we've got some experts here for the next few minutes. But while you're thinking of all those questions, I will mention and shamelessly plug that this will be on our YouTube channel. So make sure that you like and subscribe for that, as well as other upcoming webinars for gaming concepts on our website. It's being covered, I think, right now. Hard to say on the recording, but gamingconcepts.gg is up there. And that's our website where you can find more of our webinars that are going to come. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and throw those in, and we'll hang out for a few minutes. But I appreciate everybody being on here. Such a great talk about, I feel like we covered every aspect of esports in the classroom, basically. We didn't quite touch on clubs or after school, but it's just the same, just not so much teaching. So everybody kind of gets it. So so I appreciate everybody being on here. I will release you if you'd like to go, but if you'd like to stay and hang out with us and chat, I'll open it up to those that stay, and we'll have a little discussion if you'd like. And so thanks for coming, and we will see you next time.